Gauteng Education Department has placed over 276,000 grade 1 and 8 online admission applicants in schools. However, nearly 1,500 applicants still have not been placed. The department says in high-pressure district, it's also investing in more classrooms. And we've got Steve Mabona joining us to speak more about this. He's of the Gauteng Education Department there, the spokesperson. Thank you very much for your time there, Steve. I mean, it's great that over 200,000 new learners have been placed, but we do still have that problem of just over around 1,500 that still need to be placed. Talk us through that issue and how long you anticipate it's going to take you to place them.
Happy New Year, Rufua, and to all our viewers. Yes, indeed, it's concerning for us. Hence, we had to come up with plans on how we're going to be accommodating the outstanding 1,400 applicants. Well, it's in probably 3 districts that we are having the challenge of the, pressure in terms of the non-availability of classrooms in certain areas. So, like for instance, the area around Tembisa, Olifants, that's where we have actually a sizable number of those that we need to accommodate. Hence, we felt that let's invest on building more classrooms. There are schools that they've confirmed that they will be in a position to build. So we are transferring over 240 million to those identified schools. There's over 200 classes that are going to be built in both primary and high school level. So that will assist us to alleviate the pressure that we are experiencing in those identified areas. But we should be in a position to finalize this because we've already identified those 3 areas. It's not the entire province. So it's only 3 districts that are affected, and we should be in a position to finalize those.
In the interim, Steve, while these classrooms are being built, I mean, it's quite an investment that you've made there, 240 million rand directed to increasing capacity at schools in terms of classrooms. But in the interim, Steve, what happens to the children? Do they stay at home? Are they placed in other places where there is some space? Just make us understand what happens in the interim.
No. We're going to be placing them because we have availed mobile units in different areas, and we have increased those actually mobile units in the areas where we feel that we need to accommodate while we are processing the arrangement that we have already announced that we're going to be building more classrooms. So those mobile units will actually they've been delivered in most of the schools. I mean, our team was working tirelessly during the holidays. They have not been resting. They worked very hard to make sure that those mobile units are delivered. So we are just finalizing that process of placing those 1,400. But also, on the other hand, we are finalizing the appeals because other people will say, when we say we have placed over 276,000, and they will say, but we have appealed and we have not received any outcome. So we undertook that by Monday, all those that lodged the appeals, they should receive the outcome so that we understand on where we're going to be moving. But those that have appealed, it's comforting that all of them, they are placed. It's just that they would have been saying, I'm placed at a school that I didn't apply to, or a school that I don't want, I don't prefer. And unfortunately, because we are challenged with capacity in different areas, those are the areas that we say is high pressure areas. In the process, while we are still building, we will want to appeal to parents to, take the spaces that we are giving them because children must be in a classroom, so we must be in a position to put them in a classroom.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Children do need to be in classrooms. Unfortunately, Steve, though, it always is up to the parents in terms of the preferred classroom in which they would like their children to be in. So that's one issue. But another one, which I assume is a little bit of a pain point for the department, is the around 17,000 applications that did not have all the necessary documentation. And so there are some issues that you are now having to deal with there. Talk us through the update in this regard and what's going to be happening to those 17,000 applications.
Yes, indeed. You'll remember when we announced the number was a little bit higher, but then because we then decided to open the system for them to go back there and upload those documents that we are talking about. Actually, the most important document that is in contention here is a proof of residence. Because remember, when you place, you need to know where do you stay. Are you in the feeder zone? Must you then be preferred? Because that's how we then place. So they go into the system, upload the document, and they are in a position to choose available schools. That's why we said it will be available schools, because they could not comply with the requirement. Because if you don't upload necessary documents, it means you don't comply with the application process. So you must then be accommodated when you comply. So now that they are busy uploading those documents, then they're in a position to choose available school. That's why we also informed those that have not applied as yet that we are opening on Wednesday, the 12th, for the system for those that need to apply for late registration. We'll be opening the system, but we will only be availing schools that have space. We're not going to avail schools that are full, because we have those schools that have reached capacity, but we still have that can still accommodate parents that will be applying late. So on Wednesday, we are opening the system again now for the late registration.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the ways in which we deal with capacity issues, if we are dealing with them, include this issue of the white elephant schools that exist in the township. What happens to those, Steve?
No, but remember, a school will only be a school when there are, pupils in there. So if we don't have necessary numbers to accommodate in a certain school, like for instance, areas where you don't have children, you will have only probably, elderly people, and they are not children. Those primary schools are suffering in terms of the intake. They end up being closed because we can't waste the resource on a school that will accommodate lesser numbers than what is required. So once we close that school, we then hand it over to the Department of Infrastructure for them then to manage the building. Because if there is no one in a school, it's a building. It does not belong to education anymore. That's why if you will say there's a school that is empty, we need a comment about, we will refer you to the Department of Infrastructure, because they manage those buildings. Until a building is handed over to us as education, it will remain in the purview of the Department of Infrastructure.
And just to clarify for our viewers then, Steve, in the 3 districts where you are struggling with placements in terms of there being not enough space for the children, there is no issue of white elephant schools, is there?
No. We don't have such. I mean, the Olifants, Tembisa area, we are lacking in terms of the classrooms. That's why we have identified that we need to build more classrooms. But in the meantime, provide those mobile units and accommodate the Johannesburg Central. That's where we also have a challenge, and Gauteng East, that is your Ekurhuleni Far East. So that's where we have challenges. But we are managing because there's an undertaking that with those additional mobile units in the interim, we should be in a position to accommodate the rest of the learners, while we will then be continuing the process of building those classrooms and probably accommodate then everyone. But yes, indeed, we are challenged with capacity in some areas like your Tshwane West. It's an area that is growing, and we don't have enough schools in the area. That's why we will always have a challenge there to say parents are complaining that we have placed them in schools that they don't want. Unfortunately, we need to accommodate them, make sure that the children are in the classroom, and where as a department we need to play our role, we do that.
Steve, we've run out of time, but two very brief answers on these two questions from you. The first being, are there any concerns by the department that parents who perhaps reside in areas like Soweto are choosing to send their children to public schools outside of their areas? And then the second thing, school safety. We've got COVID. Are the classrooms prepared to make sure that kids are learning in a safe environment? Very briefly on those two questions, please.
Remember, after the introduction of our new regulations, anyone can apply anywhere, but then there will be a category on how we prioritize people. So it doesn't matter where you stay. As long as a school can accommodate you in terms of space, you will be accommodated. So that cannot be a concern, really. As long as people can be accommodated in schools, we will then encourage that. But you will understand that nothing has been changed in terms of how we're going to be accommodating our children. Basic education is a responsibility to announce if we are, going to have everyone, or we continue with rotation. But as far as we are concerned, there's no new information that will say everyone must come to school. So we will continue the process of rotation until the minister will then be guiding on how we're going to be moving forward. But for now, COVID is still within us, and we need to make sure that we adhere to those regulations that are being managed by Department of Health, working very closely with them in the event of anything, interact with them. We encourage actually people to vaccinate. You will remember that when we were going on research, we launched a process whereby the over 12-year they were vaccinating at our schools. So we'll continue with that program and encourage
on that, Steve,
learners.
Actually, on that, are there any discussions around a vaccine mandate around learners and teachers? Is the department discussing anything about a vaccine mandate policy that may be introduced?
No, that it's the Department of Health that can assist you with that question. Remember, we implement what they bring in our space. They manage health, we manage the classroom. So until such time that we are guided on how to manage that, we will then you have to implement.
Absolutely. Steve Mabona there joining me to talk about the school year that is about to commence on Wednesday this week. Thank you very much for your time this morning.